this morning. I'm sure you guys all came with questions ready, so I'm just gonna kick us off here with a quick introduction, and then we will open the floor for Q&A. Before we get started here, just a few housekeeping items to keep in mind during the webinar. Please stay on mute if you are not actively asking a question. If you do have a question, please raise your hand until your question is addressed. And once it's been answered, please lower your hand. Lastly, if you prefer to ask your question in the chat, the Accenture team will monitor the chat and we will address these questions at the end. As for why we're here, just a reminder, after the initial submission of the fiscal year 23 CROSSACT report, there were 3 known issues that needed to be addressed. So first, due to ambiguous requirements from ESSER, there was some confusion in the initial guidance that was sent out to districts. Second, there were various flags from the ESF reporting tool. And lastly, some of the submissions had their data adjusted to conform to US Ed requirements if the data quality issues were not resubmitted by your entity. I also would like to highlight that the deadline for this resubmission is Friday, September 6th. However, if you are able to send us your resubmission before the 6th, we will gladly take it earlier. And lastly, I would like to remind you guys that this webinar is strictly focused on reporting. So all policy and compliance questions should be inquired with MDE. Before we start with the Q&A, I am going to walk you guys through a high-level review of the most common errors that we had been seeing during the initial submission window. So starting with this section here, well, first, before I get into this, I do want to call out that this document that I'm sharing on my screen here is the technical guidance that I sent to all of the districts in the same email with your initial submission attached. So I understand there's confusion. There's a lot of guidances that have been sent to you guys, but please only refer to this technical guidance going forward. The one that was sent to you earlier this year, you guys can ignore it, discard it, get rid of it. But again, only use this technical guidance that I shared with you guys for your reference. So to start, there was a subset of entities that received an email regarding issues around the total amount expended for staff across FTE, and that's referencing this section here. If you did not receive an email, then your data for this section was not flagged by the ESF reporting tool and your numbers are okay. The next section that I want to call out to you guys is the student enrollment by demographic subgroup section. So for this entire section here, the enrollment data should be reported using fall 2022 counts. Again, I know there was confusion around whether it should be fall of 2023 or fall of 2022, but I just want to call out that the enrollment data by demographic subgroup should reflect fall of 2022 counts. The next section that I am going to review applies to sections 1, 2, and 4. These sections were the primary cause of confusion and why we're having to resubmit data. So I'm gonna throw a lot of information at you guys here, but for your reference in the technical guidance in row 10 right here, all 3 examples that I'm about to walk you guys through are reflected in this example value section, again in sections 1, 2, and 4. So using section 1 as an example, the first type of scenario you can have for this section is if you answer false for this probing question in sections 1, 2, or 4. If you say false that there were no evidence-based summer learning or enrichment programs, then the remainder of this section can be left blank. And again, that also applies to sections 2 and 4. So if you answer no for the first question in sections 2 or 4, the rest of the section can be left blank. Now, the next example would be if you were to answer true in this first section or first question of this section, indicating that evidence-based summer learning or summer enrichment programs are available, but you answer false in the next question, asking if the program is available to all students. So again, this would be true, false. Then we would expect there to be a value reported here indicating how many students the program serves at full capacity, given that you answered false here that the program was not available to all students. So again, if you answered true, false, we would expect a value for the number of students the program serves at full capacity. And again, we would also expect a value reported here indicating the unique headcount of students that participated in the evidence-based summer learning or summer enrichment programs. Now, again, just highlighting that this is an example where you answered true, false for the first two questions. If that's the case, then the enrolled eligible students at LEA and subgroup, so column CA, CC, CE, and so on, these values should not tie to the demographic subgroup data that was reported in the previous section. These counts should reflect the number of students in each subgroup that were eligible to participate in the activity. And the subsequent subsections, so column CB here, CD, and so on, should reflect the number of students that actually participated. The last thing I want to call out in section 1 is that at the end of the section, if you reported any value other than 0 in the other student population, the last section or the last column in that section would require you to populate what the other subpopulation was. Again, you only have to enter a description of the other subpopulation if you answered anything other than 0 in column DB for the other student population. Now, the last example that I'm going to walk you guys through, I'm going to use section 2 as the example, but again, this applies to sections 1, 2, and 4. If you were to answer true in the probing question indicating that evidence-based after-school programs were available, and you answered true in the second question indicating that the program was available to all students, so again, this is true, then you do not need to indicate the number of students that the program serves at full capacity. You can leave this field blank because you indicated that the program was available to all students. However, you still would need to populate the total unique headcounts of students that participated in the activity, even if you answered true, true. Now, for the enrolled eligible students at LEA and subgroup, for these subsections here, because you answered true and true, indicating that the program was available to all students, then we would expect the numbers in these enrolled eligible subgroup subsections to tie to the demographic subgroup enrollment counts that you provided in the section before section 1. Again, these numbers should only tie to the demographic subgroup section if you answered true, true. And similarly, the eligible student in subgroup participating should reflect the number of students that were eligible to enroll. This should reflect the number of students that participated. So again, those were the main errors that we saw the first time around when we were reviewing your submissions. So I just wanted to walk through those with you guys, and thank you guys for bearing with me as I kicked off the meeting. So with all of that being said, I would like to open the floor for any questions. So again, if you have a question, please raise your hand and we will call on you guys that way, or please use the chat to ask questions in there that we will address at the end of the webinar. So Nicole, you were the first one to raise your hand if you would like to ask your question.
Oh, thank you. So our district got flagged for the funding And if we are going to submit the same numbers back, you said we don't need to make any changes necessarily. We just need to confirm with you that we're sending it back, or?
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
So if you were flagged for the FTE section and your numbers, and you don't think you need to change your numbers, if you can just respond to my email and if you can provide a clarification on why your numbers might be over 100,000 or below $100, whichever one you were flagged for, if you can just provide an explanation of why the numbers are different, then that would be great.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Jane.
Hi, good morning. I was trying to take notes as you were talking, but I want to make sure I didn't miss anything. So can you start with BW, column BW, and just walk me through that again? I know you said if there is a false, there shouldn't be data in the columns that start as CA, but I just want to make sure I'm following it correctly. Because I only reason I'm saying that is because VY says if no, but there is no if no response. It's only true or false.
So the webinar will be recorded, and I can again send you guys the information for the recording after the fact if that would be helpful. Or again, if you would like me to walk you through the specifics of these sections again, and you don't mind staying once the questions are done, I can walk you through it in detail again. But for the sake of time, I think we'll go through people that have specific questions first, and then again, I can come back and walk you through this again at the end of the webinar.
Okay.
Okay, and then John.
Hi, if you wouldn't mind going back to that section 1, I just have a question about one of the things that you said. So when you were talking about student count, if we were true, false, yeah, that's good right there. So go to the right a little bit just so you can see. So we went true, false, and then there were 350 students at full capacity. But then that number in column CA is 650. That should not exceed the number of students, like, because I think that's where I had my issue was I have, say 650 in students with disabilities, but the total number that my summer school program could accommodate is 350, or that it was offered to. So essentially what column CA should be is the number of eligible students with disabilities out of that 350.
Correct, yes.
Okay, so the numbers in these in like CA, CB, CC should never exceed the total number that that initial marker that initial capacity has, correct?
Correct, yes.
Okay, all right, so I think that's where I made my mistake, because I took that as an entire district of, like, how many students do you have in your whole district with disabilities, as opposed to what number of students in that offered group have disabilities or are low income or whatever.
Right, correct.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Okay, Robin.
Hi there. So my question is, looking at what you're showing right now, it says for all data attributes, please provide data for the fiscal year 23, school year 22-23. Is that true for the entire document? Because I remember when we were initially submitting, we were trying to do it by year. Should we just simplify it and everything in the entire document is the 22-23 school year?
So yes, but also no, because in the
Okay.
beginning of the report, it asks for specific years. So aside from these sections that again are calling out the specific date and year range, yes, you can say that for the rest of the report, it should reflect fiscal year 23 data.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful.
Okay, great. Stephen? Stephen, you're
Okay,
on mute.
I figure out
There
on
you-
mute. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Are you able to hear me?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. So my question is on columns DB to EG. I had a note that the programs were available to all students, so I had put true, and then it said you were expecting to have the number of eligible students DF to EG match the total enrollment number by demographic in BE to BS, and that there were discrepancies. So I guess my question is, I had sent a note back that not all the students that participated were part of the subgroup. Only 3 had disabilities, 4 were low income, 1 was homeless, and 2 had no subgroup. I'm not sure if that's what's causing the discrepancy or what that would be.
So you responded true for this, you said?
Yes.
Okay, so if you say true, that means that if you answer true for the second question, that means that the program was available to all students. So because it was available to all students, we would expect these enrolled eligible students at LEA and subgroup for each demographic subgroup to tie to the enrolled demographic subgroup counts in columns. And again, the columns here don't line up with the ones in the report because of this front section we have. So I believe you said BE to BS in the report.
Yes.
So because you said that the program is available to all students, then these numbers should tie to the demographic subgroup, saying that, again, using this example of 730 students with 1 or more disabilities, if we go back to the subgroup section, because it's true, saying it's available to all students, then again, it should tie to what you reported here. If you are saying that the numbers are not tying because it was not available to all of the students in the subgroup, then I believe you should answer true, false here. And then in that case, these enrolled eligible students at subgroup, it's okay if those numbers are different from the demographic subgroup enrollment numbers.
So I guess if I look at mine, so the students with 1 or more disabilities,
Mhm.
which is the first one there where you have 730, correct?
Yes,
Okay, so I had 273 on BE. So you were expecting 273 there because everyone was eligible.
correct.
And then I would answer, let me go back over here, 3 for the next one because only 3 participated.
Correct, yes.
Okay, that makes sense. So I'll make sure all of those match for what was eligible and then have the other numbers.
Okay, perfect.
Perfect. Thank you.
Of course. And just a reminder, if you guys have asked for questions and they've been addressed, if you guys can just lower your hand.
Yep.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Next, Liz.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Back to the question of the dates that we're reporting this information for. I asked this question during a webinar with Kevin Walters from MDE on Thursday. And there's a difference between the federal year and the school year. And so he said that we are supposed to report from October 1st, 2022 to September of 2023. But that question that was just asked a few minutes ago made it sound like that we're to report for the school fiscal year of 2023, which is correct.
So from US Ed, they're requesting data for fiscal year 23. But again, because schools have different start dates and end dates, we're not giving you guys a specific date range for the school year. So fiscal year 23, we're saying school year 2022 to 2023 because that's what best aligns with fiscal year 23. But yes, you are correct. October 1st, 2022 to September 30th would be the date range. And then again, for the demographic subgroup section, that should be fall 2022 data. Of
Thank you.
course. Does anybody else have any questions?
Okay, Bria, if you don't see any more hands, I think we can maybe go to the chat. Oh, there's a hand there.
Okay. Hi, this is Farmington. We have a question on the greater than $100,000. You know, the individuals, when they're staff, by the time you add FICA, retirement, and their benefits, they're going to be more than $100,000. So I guess I'm confused by the question about verify your information because it's more than $100,000. So, I mean, do we just respond by saying we've reviewed the information and it's correct?
Yes. And again, if in that email, you can just provide us with the explanation you just said of why it's greater than $100,000, that would be great. We're not necessarily saying that the data that you reported is incorrect. It was just flagged by ESF for being greater than $100,000. So we just wanted to, again, clarify with you guys that the submission was accurate.
Okay. Okay, great. Thanks.
Of course. Lauren.
Oh, that was us. Sorry.
I just answered your question. Okay, Beth.
Yeah, hi. I'm actually piggybacking on Lauren's. So we had the same thing, reported more than 100,000, but on the person you just answered or they asked a question on that salary range, we actually did it from, of course, our fiscal year crosses years. So we did, from October 1 through the end of the year. And then we did another piece of the salary from July 1st through September of 23. So we crossed fiscal years doing that data. So I'm confused. Am I supposed to do just strictly our fiscal year 23, or are we grabbing the salaries from pieces of both years?
It should just be from fiscal year 23.
Our fiscal year 23, so July through June?
No, so then it should be from your school year 2022 to 2023. So from that October or whatever the starting date of your school year was through September 30th of 2023.
Okay, so we are crossing fiscal years.
Ria, let's check with USED on that one.
Yeah, I was just gonna say we'll take your question back to USED and follow up with you after. So could you remind me or just repeat what you guys reported on for that section?
We reported from October 1st of 2022 through June of 2023. That's one fiscal year. And then we grabbed their salaries that started in July through September. So they're two different salary ranges.
Okay, got it. Yes, we will again follow up with USED and get back to you in the next few days when we get a response on that.
Okay, thanks.
Nicole?
Can you please send that out to anyone that had that flagged, because that is crossing 2 fiscal years. So
yes,
for our purposes, thank you.
Of course. Liz?
Okay, thanks. So can you clarify for me again? So when the original guidance was sent out, we were told to use fall count 2023 for the student count data. Would that be correct?
No, this section here, the demographic subgroup section, that should be using fall of 2022 counts.
But what guidance were we given from MDE? Do you know?
In the initial guidance that was sent to you guys at the beginning of the year, it had said to use fall of 2023 counts for this section, but it should actually be fall of 2022 counts.
So basically, everyone would need to resubmit then, correct? Because we were given the wrong guidance at first.
So there were two guidances, one technical guidance and the webinar. On the webinar PowerPoint that went out, it did call out the correct dates. So that we're asking everybody to review their data and resubmit it. But there is a chance that some districts did it the correct way the first time around. But we're just, again, having everybody redo it just for audit purposes and to submit the most accurate data to US Ed from the Department of Education.
Okay, thank you.
I'm gonna look.
Does anybody else have any questions before we turn to the chat? Okay. Diego, did you start answering some of the questions in here, or should I just start from the top?
Yeah, let's start from the top, I think.
Okay. So Kimberly, to answer your question, how you know what your district has been flagged for, you should have, well, unless you received an email about the FTE flags, we did not specify in the email any flags. That was the only one that you guys would be notified of. If you didn't receive a notification of the FTE flag, then we're just asking you to review all of the data you submitted to make sure it reflects the correct reporting year. Anna, so your question, we enrolled and disenroll students every day. Fall FTE count is 135. Anna, for your question, I am going to review that after the call. And again, I will follow up with you in the next couple of days if that's okay for the answer to that one. And the next question also from Anna, if we provided feedback weeks back and got no follow-up, should we assume all is okay? So if you're referring to the first initial submission we did back in May and June of this year, and you got no follow-up to that, then no, don't assume all is okay. Again, we're redoing this entire process. So if you could review your data and again, respond to the email from my Michigan email address indicating that your data is good, then that would be great. If you did respond to my Michigan email and say that your data is accurate, then yes, all is okay and there's nothing else you guys need to do. Where would the email come from if we were flagged? So if you guys were flagged for the FTE section, that would be included in the initial email that I sent you guys with your initial submission attached to it. Again, if there was nothing in the email about being flagged for the FTE section, then your data was okay and you don't need to worry about that one section. But again, please review your entire report to make sure it reflects the correct reporting year. So what date were follow-ups sent to us? So the initial outreach for this resubmission started at the end of July and went through the first week of August. So again, look for any communication from my Michigan email for resubmission information. Anything from my Accenture email was part of the first submission process. Next question, for the FTE section, what dates do you use for this? So again, for the FTE section, we will follow up with US Ed on that and get back to anybody that had a flag for that. And then Jennifer says, I'm assuming the summer program from July 2023 be included in this report. Yes, the summer programs from July 2023 will be included. And yes, the email ending is my michigan.gov email address. And then Lauren, to answer your question, for the enrollment by demographic subgroup section, we want fall of 2022 enrollment counts, not fall of 2023. And then Michael, I'm just looking through your question here. Bear with me for a second. So for your question also, Michael, it should be the fall of 2022 counts for the demographic subgroup enrollment questions or section. I think those were all of the questions in the chat too. Did anybody have any additional questions they wanted to ask? Yes, Robin.
So as we're working through double checking everything, if we have questions, what's the best way to get support at this point?
You can give me a call. I put my phone number in that initial email communication that I sent out to you guys. So again, give me a call if you don't get in touch with me for whatever reason. Just please leave me a message, and I will make sure to get back to all of you that have called me.
Thank you.
Of course. Or again, you can also email me, communicate through email too, whatever works best for you guys. Any other questions? So I will stay on the line until 12 p.m. If anybody has questions. If your questions have been answered, you can feel free to drop. And again, we will send out information on about the recording. Again, I will stay on the line here if any other questions come up in the next 20 minutes. Yes, Robin.
Oh, I'm all set. I just forgot
okay,
to lower my hand. Thank you so
okay,
much.
perfect. Of course. Gloria, did you have a question?
I do, and thank you. I'm relatively new with South Lake District. This is the first time I'm actually hearing this information, and as I'm going to be the new person reviewing and or submitting, how do I get added to a listserv for future communications?
If you want to drop your email address in the chat here, I can add your email address to our distribution list and update the contact information for what school was that again, you said?
South Lake District.
South Lake District. Okay, yes, if you could just put your email address in the chat, I will add you to all of that. Just a reminder for everybody still on the call, if you guys don't have any other questions, you can feel free to drop. But again, I will still be on the line until 12 if you guys do have any other questions. For those of you that are still on the line, I just wanted to check to see if you guys had any questions before we close out the webinar.